The Supreme Court has made it clear that with their new right-wing majority, they're going to make sure that corporations, not consumers, receive the most protection. You know, the reason to me this story is important is for the same thing you've been writing about in the National Trial Lawyer Journal. I mean, you've been talking about this, and you and I have been talking about this for years. That is, the Democrats always pay attention to the shiny thing, okay? Now, the shiny thing is a state election, a POTUS election, the big things. While that's going on, we have the courts being packed at every stage. Now, in a minute, there's another case out there coming out of the Ninth Circuit that is even more horrendous than this. We're seeing conduct coming out of the Ninth Circuit that's even more horrendous than this. But the way that these appellate courts all tie up to the Supreme Court, for example, in this situation, we have the Supreme Court basically, bottom line is they're making it impossible for people to really recover anything when a corporation steals from them, harms them in any number of ways through arbitration, which it's basically an impossible process. But the point is that these federal courts that have been appointed all over the United States while the Democrats have been sleeping, and I really tell you, you and I did the story where overnight the Democrats wanted to go home and campaign, and they agreed with McConnell, yeah, you just appoint whoever you want to, and they appointed, what was it, 15?
It was 15 the second time, 11 the first time, because they did it twice in about a month span.
Okay, well, you know where I'm headed with this.
Yeah.
Pick up with this. Okay, so these federal courts are appointed. They know the federal court's going to make the issue an issue that's going to make it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court takes over and does their job there. Explain that.
Well, a lot of people also think that the Supreme Court, when they get the case, they're looking at it with fresh eyes. Every one of them is already biased by what the lower courts decided.
Exactly.
And so when we have, I think we're almost at 100 lower court judges appointed and approved by the Republicans this year. 100. And we're at the beginning of November. Right. We've got more on the way. They've reshaped the entire judicial map, not just the Supreme Court. It's not just Kavanaugh or Gorsuch. It's every court before that that's going to make a decision and then affirm the decision on the next one.
Okay, fair. And jump it off now to this case that we're going to talk about, the arbitration case. In other words, this happened exactly like that.
Right.
Lower court they say something that they say it in a way that it becomes an issue for the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, we know what they're going to do. If it's a corporation versus a consumer, the consumer is going to get killed. Yeah. And that's what happened here. Talk about this case.
Right. What they're looking at right now is, do the consumers have the right essentially to go to trial, or can we just force arbitration again? Right. Which they've done in so many instances, your cell phones, your credit cards. And now they're trying to expand that even further to other industries, other kinds of disputes. And part of this is not just because the corporate power, part of it goes back to a slightly more sinister plan from the Powell memo as he laid it out to defund the left. And the number one target was the trial lawyers, and the number one way you defund them...
Just take jury trials away.
Yeah, take the jury trials away, send people to arbitration, which most people can't afford to do.
Let me talk about how bad arbitration really is, okay? Most people understand the arbitrators, the people that you have to sit in front of, okay? Wells Fargo, for example, they've ripped you off for $3,000. Now, under the arbitration arrangement that the U.S. Supreme Court has put in place, you have to go fight for your $3,000. You got to hire an attorney to do it, and then you have to sit across the table from arbitrators that come directly from the banking business. As a matter of fact, they might have even worked for Wells Fargo, who stole $3,000 for you. In this situation, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
These are employees. There was a situation where employees said, the company has done the same bad thing to a bunch of us, okay? And we would like to go forward and arbitrate as a class, as a group, and hear one, you're not giving us a chance to go to trial, so at least give us the chance, rather than having to do one at a time, let us go as a group and let's make the argument. And the U.S. Supreme Court said no. Why did they say no? Because it discourages individuals from doing anything. if they steal $3,000, Wells Fargo does it, the corporations involved in this case does it, it doesn't make any difference, you see, because they know there's only going to be a handful of people that are so mad that they're actually going to do anything about it, and probably they're going to lose in front of the arbitrator. The statistic is something like, it's almost approaching, you mentioned, is it 80, is it above 80%?
It is above 80, it's approaching 90.
Of failure between the consumer and the arbitrator. It's, I know, well above 80% failure. So anyway, so there's no surprises here. But again, the thing that makes me so angry, okay, and I think about the Kavanaugh hearing. They had all this stuff to talk about, and they choose some goof says, hey, let's make the whole issue whether or not he gang raped somebody, okay? First of all, it was suspect to begin with, and now we're finding it was very suspect. Yes, something bad did happen. I'm convinced Kavanaugh did some bad things, but you don't lead with that. You can't win with that. And they had, as you pointed out, Proxmire had already had Kavanaugh on the on the hot seat, catching him lying.
Yeah.
I mean, it was serious lies. And then the buffoons who run the DNC, I am absolutely convinced that we have a cadre of buffoons running the DNC. They make the choice to go that way. And now this whole we're going to see this every month. Right. Supreme Court rules against consumers. We saw Ruth Ginsburg fell, arm injury. What I don't give Ruth Ginsburg more than a year. There's a wonderful documentary out there that talks about she exercises every day. She's fighting to stay. But you know what? There's only so much she can do.
Exactly.
If she falls and breaks a hip, it's game over.
Right. And right now, I mean, the Supreme Court's already lost for a generation, because another thing Republicans do very well is they pick young people that can sit up there for 30 to 40 years. So, if something happens to her, it is game over. It is 100% game over.
Yeah.